that invoice follows it. It goes into the mill where he has delivered the grain, and they add value to that and turn it into flour, maybe another 10%. So in order to avoid paying the $2,000 worth of wheat, the $200 tax, they would take the invoice from the farmer and they carry that forward with that follows the wheat, and now they pay another $100 when they grind it into flour. Then they take it on, and maybe now as bread it's worth $3,000 in the form of bread. Now there's another 10% tax on the gain. So at each level of the transaction there's all kinds of paperwork, and everybody up the chain wants to make sure they have all the invoices so they don't have to pay the full tax at the level they are. And that's what makes everybody a tax collector out of it, and that's why it's so insidious.
Now, this bill, you look at the legislation, it establishes permanent bailout authority for Wall Street. It hurts your average taxpayer, puts them on the hook for the losses of Wall Street, does nothing about Fannie and Freddie. It hurts small business. Take a step back. What does this do for the idea of capitalism in our country?
Capitalism is under attack. Free markets are under attack. And I think Steve and I have talked about this quite a bit. The most stunning story of the last 18 months is that 18 months ago, 100% of the private economy was private. Then we had the $700 billion bailout. That slush fund was used by the federal government for one reason, and the purpose was this. They bought one private industry after another out of that. They purchased AIG. They purchased the largest banks in the United States, Citibank, Bank of America. They purchased the largest car companies in America, GM, Chrysler. They purchased Fannie and Freddie. They're now nationalized so that over 50% of all private mortgages are now owned by the federal government. If you want to buy a home today, 9 times out of 10, you've got to go to the federal government to get your loan today. They own the student loan industry and now health care. So in 18 months' time, we've gone from 100% of the private economy private to 51% of the economy or more is owned or controlled directly by the federal government. Think of it. How can we with a straight face even say we're a free market economy anymore? And then if this bill goes through, this financial services bill will give the federal government direct control over the financial services industry, which some people have estimated at 15% more of the economy. Or if cap and trade goes through, which is effectively a national energy tax, that would give the federal government another 8% of the private economy they're in charge of. This is the story of the last 18 months, and it's why our economy can't grow right now. But I think it's a very deliberate move by this administration to centralize power and to have government own or control the means of production. That's for anti-free market.
Well, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, they aren't producing all the jobs in the country. It is small business. So if you're a small business owner right now, do you feel like a second-class citizen because all of a sudden you've got Washington, D.C. trying to bail out all these big businesses, but they're not doing anything to look at the problems in small business and all the taxation that's being put on them and the new paperwork we've been talking about? Yeah,
I don't know that the impact has hit the small business people yet. I don't think they realize how deep and how pervasive this is. And there's been a mindset out there in America too that the people that they elected into office in Congress and the people that hold the gavels like Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and Barney Frank and also have advisors around them that understand high finance, investment banking, Wall Street. And so there was a level of time that there was a trust that the right decisions were being made. But by the time the federal government got into taking over General Motors and Chrysler, that was it for the patience of the American people because they know cars. We love them, we build them, we collect them, we fix them, and we remodel them and we race them. And they don't want the federal government engaged in that. Now small business has seen that happen. They're uneasy, but they don't have much choice. They're going to have to comply one piece of it at a time. They think they will adapt as it comes along. Some will be swallowed up, some will fail, some will find a way to succeed. And it is a tragedy to see that I listened to the numbers that Michelle has just laid out here, and just a running total, and I'm probably off by a couple percent, but I come to 75% of the private sector if financial services are regulated and if the cap and trade is only 8%, and I suspect it's bigger than that. You're at 75% of our economy. And a lot of that's been done, but it's certain that the Obama proposal is to swallow up at least 75% of our private sector. And I was not making a joke. I'm very serious when I say go to the socialist website, dsausa.org. They say there they want to nationalize the Fortune 500 companies in America and run them, operate them for, and I quote, the benefit of the people affected by them, close quote. That's the unions. The president has done move after move to try to, they've handed 17.5% of the shares of General Motors over to the unions. And so that game plan is in place, and I could not have written a screenplay for this 3 years ago that even imagined half the things that they've already done, Brian.
Now, with transparency, the issue of transparency, you look at what happened with the stimulus plan where Republicans weren't really allowed to participate in that conference. You look at Obamacare, a lot of that, many of the provisions of the bill were drafted behind closed doors with lobbyists, the American people weren't allowed to see what was going on. C-SPAN cameras were brought in after the bill was written.
Yeah.
And this is happening again with this bill. I mean, the Senate's rewriting the bill on the Senate floor, but in the end, they're going to change it, and they're going to bring it to a conference and change it, and the administration is going to, in essence, get to write this bill. What do you think about the lack of transparency in this administration when President Obama promised to have the most transparent and ethical government in our nation's history?
Well, I sometimes think that he must have people that are keeping track of all of the pledges that he's made every time he's given the oath to keep his word, and then they want to, now that they have the list, they're trying to make sure he breaks every one of them. That's what it looks to me like. I no longer have faith that the president gives his word seriously at all. And I think our watchword needs to be this: repeal. We have to look at repeal. We'll never get our country back if we're not willing to make the hard decisions and go right down the line, win a majority back in November, and start down the line of repeal. And if we can't get it repealed without a veto from President Obama, then we shut off all funding that implements any of these activist things that are there. And I think Michelle agrees with me.
Oh, absolutely. The health bill is the #1 bill that we have to repeal. But when the Democrats came in, they had an omnibus spending bill. And omnibus means big fat. That's what it was. Big, huge, fat spending bills. 40 years of dreams of all these liberal projects, and they put it into place. But what we need is an omnibus repeal bill. So all of the measures that have been passed over the year that have stifled small business and stifled job growth, we get a massive repeal bill, and we just in one fell swoop do away with it and have the guts to do with it. I give the Obama administration, Pelosi and Reid, credit. They had the guts to do what they wanted to implement. Now, we see it destroying the country, but they at least had the guts to do it. Now, conservatives have to have the guts to do the repeal bill. I was all over my district yesterday. I was in 4 different cities. I held 4 job forums, 90 minutes each across the district, all for the purpose of trying to figure out how can we have more job creation in the small businesses in the private sector. And they talked about transparency. You know what they were angry about? The fact that the members of Congress didn't even have time to read the bills, and they didn't have time to read the bills. Here we're talking about nationalizing more and more of the economy, and the people can't even read the bills. Yeah. I think that really disgusts them about what President Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid did. Because they did this under the dark of night, and they passed these bills, they wrote them, they let lobbyists write these bills, special interests write the bills, so we couldn't even read them. It was impossible for anyone to read these bills. And I will guarantee you, not one senator read that health care bill before they voted on it. And it isn't because we're too stupid or too lazy to read these bills. We physically couldn't because we're not even given the time to do it.
Well, thank you, Congressman Steve King. Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, thank you so much for coming in, talking about this issue. Look forward to having you in to talk about other issues as they come up before Congress.
We do, too. Thanks,
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Great. This event was brought to you by Ensuring Liberty, an organization that stands for less government, fiscal responsibility, lower taxes, national security, and states' rights. Please click on the Join Now button to join this organization and take that anger that people are feeling out there right now and put it right into action. Thank you so much.